Hello, I'm Dr. Beth Breeze from the University of Kent Centre for Philanthropy. I'm very happy to be online presenting the findings from the research published in Missing Out: Understanding the Female Leadership Gap in Fundraising, which was commissioned by the Institute of Fundraising and published as part of their Change Collective initiative. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce a few people. Firstly, this is Elizabeth Dale, who's the co-author of this report. We designed and conducted the research together, and it's been a huge pleasure working on this study with Elizabeth. The other people I'm going to introduce are less of a pleasure and more of an illustration of the problem. Firstly, John, or more precisely, lots of Johns. Here's a John from each of the main UK political parties. John Bercow from the Conservatives, John McDonnell from Labour, John Swinney from SNP. Politics is famously male-dominated, and not that long ago there were more MPs called John than there were female MPs. After the last general election in December, there was some celebration because record numbers of women were elected. There are now 220 female members. That's the highest ever figure, but it's still only a third, 34%, of the available seats in the House of Commons, so maybe not quite so much to celebrate. Politics is at least more representative in gender terms than big business. A report last year noted that there were a larger number of FTSE 100 leaders called David than there were female CEOs, 8 Davids and 7 women. If you throw in the 5 Steves with the 8 Davids, these 13 men outnumber the combined FTSE CEOs who are women or ethnic minorities. But both politics and business are doing better than science. Here's Alfred Nobel, the Swedish chemist who founded the most prestigious academic honour. Of the 600 Nobel Prizes that have so far been awarded for physics, chemistry, medicine or physiology, only 20 went to women. That's 3.5% of the science Nobels. Men got the other 96.5%. The point I'm making is that the charity sector is part of a wider society in which male success is continuously and disproportionately facilitated in almost every aspect of life. So there's much more work to be done right across society to ensure equality, diversity and inclusion. But the research I'm talking about today is about problems in the fundraising profession, and specifically to look at what more can be done to recognise, support and enable female talent to rise to the top. So forgive the plot spoiler, but we did find problems. We can and should do better. But I think we also need to keep in mind that broader context of the Johns, the Davids and the Alfred. But we're here to think about the fundraising profession, so let's do that. This photo was taken a couple of years ago at the annual Institute of Fundraising convention held in London. I think if you pointed a camera at the crowd at pretty much any gathering of fundraisers, this is the kind of picture you'd take, because fundraising is a female-dominated profession. Around 3/4 of professional paid fundraisers are women, and that proportion is the same in the US and, as far as we know, in comparable countries where fundraising is also professionalised. But this picture is also slightly misleading, because whilst the rank and file of the profession are mostly female, once you move up the ranks, the gender split changes. Last year, according to Civil Society's annual survey of the top 100 fundraising charities, only 52 had female directors of fundraising. I assume we all believe that talent is spread equally across the genders. That means there are around 24 women missing out from the leadership roles in the 100 biggest and arguably most prestigious charities. Why, and what can we do about it, are the questions that this research tackles. Let me say one more thing before I launch into sharing the findings. This report focuses on gender, but of course we all have multiple identities that affect how we experience the world and how the world experiences us. Lots of people who took part in our study were clear that their age, their race, their sexuality, disability, class and other personal characteristics are all important too. So we're glad that other projects within the Institute's Change Collective initiative are looking at these other aspects of fundraisers' diversity, and we hope that this work, which is focused on gender, will be a useful part of that broader effort to achieve an equal, diverse and inclusive profession. So how do we go about this study? The main data comes from a large online survey completed by almost 800 fundraisers, men and women, who answered over 70 questions on a wide range of topics listed on the screen here, including how they got into fundraising, their career progression and ambitions, workplace culture, availability of flexible working, mentors and role models, attitudes about leadership in fundraising, policies, practices and experiences of gender discrimination. If you are one of those fundraisers who completed the survey, thank you very much. We also ran focus groups in Edinburgh, Newcastle and Canterbury, in which a mix of existing and aspiring female fundraising leaders talked about what's helped or stalling their careers, what's encouraged or put them off going for leadership positions, and how things could be better. And finally, we conducted 6 in-depth interviews with current female fundraising leaders to gain greater detail and insight on the mechanisms, strategies and approaches that they found helpful for advancing their careers and those of female colleagues. So what did we find? It's not possible to do justice to all that data in 20 minutes, so please do read the report in full. What I can do is highlight some key findings. Let's start with salary. In the online survey, we asked about starting salary and current salary. We found no statistical difference in the starting salaries of men and women, but men reported current salaries that were 14.3% higher than women. So as careers develop, that disparity emerges for a number of different reasons, not least the typically unequal division of domestic work, and fundraisers do a lot of that. We found that 44% of fundraisers have got caring commitments alongside their careers. Most often this is preschool and school-aged children, but over 13% are caring for adult children, parents or other family members, and just over 10% are managing more than one type of caring responsibility on top of their day job. I'm going to say more about the other points that are on the screen now and show you the data that lies behind them, but what collectively they show is that women are missing out on leadership roles and charities are missing out on benefiting from all available talent. Let's look at organisation size. This bar chart shows the percentage of men and women that work in different size charities. We use the NCVO categorisations of charity size, major, large, medium, small and micro, that are used in the Civil Society Almanac. We found that men, the grey bar, are more likely to be fundraising for the largest charities, those with incomes of £10 million or more annually. And women, the sort of teal blue bar, are more likely to be fundraising for the relatively smaller organisations. Why might this matter? Bigger charities are more likely to have the budget to support training, conference attendance, continuing professional development. They might be able to invest in technology that supports flexible and home working. So it matters if women are more likely to be working in smaller, perhaps cash-strapped charities that might struggle to afford spending on staff development. Whatever size of charity they work in, we found that women are far more likely to hold part-time positions. 25% of women work part-time compared to just over 13% of men, if you add together the smaller bars which show the 3 or 4 days a week or less than 3 days a week. One of our respondents pointed out that more part-time colleagues and people in leadership positions could help set a different tone about work-life balance. She said, "It would be great to see more role models of senior leaders working part-time and or flexibly, so they can also manage some level of family life too. Surely in today's world we don't always need to be present in a London-based head office for 5 full days a week to be able to carry out a senior leadership role effectively." We know from other research that women are often penalised for negotiating in the workplace, so we wanted to understand whether female fundraisers face similar barriers. We found that just under half of both women and men negotiated their salary, and just under half of those got what they asked for. But the unsuccessful category includes those who got some of what they asked for and those who got none. If we look only at the completely unsuccessful negotiations, women are twice as likely to walk away empty-handed. We found that women are more likely than men to try to negotiate their hours, yet men were more successful in those negotiations. It's possible that women's need for flexibility means they make a call to ask about hours rather than a higher salary, as one respondent explained. "I have been a director of fundraising for over 10 years. During this time, other directors with less experience have consistently earned more and received more pay rises and bonuses because I have used my negotiation opportunities to discuss flexible working due to caring responsibilities." The definition of a leader is famously hard to pin down. Some people say you can lead whatever your job title if you have the right attributes and mindset. So we asked respondents whether they felt they were in a leadership position, regardless of their actual job title. Even though senior management teams are a pretty equal mix of women and men, remember the directors of fundraising was a 52-48 split, we found that men are more likely to describe themselves as being in a leadership position. That might reflect a difference in how men and women perceive leadership, and perhaps how comfortable men are in describing themselves as leaders. When we asked those who are not currently in leadership positions if they aspire to lead, more women said yes than men, over four-fifths of respondents, 81%, which rather blows away the idea that women are happy to coast, that they put up a glass umbrella rather than hit a glass ceiling and don't aspire to leadership positions. So the desire is there, but the opportunities for women may not be. And some ambitious male colleagues might be making it harder for their female colleagues to succeed, as one respondent explained. She said, "Men I've worked with seem to have usually left the team development, supporting colleagues, and any other necessary tasks that often go unnoticed to female colleagues. Men focus their time instead on achieving personal success that they receive a lot of recognition for," she said. What else makes it harder for women at work? We found that female fundraisers are far more likely than men to claim that they've experienced stereotyping or preconceptions based on their gender, including around 1 in 6 who say this happens often. One respondent told us, "After 10 years of meeting or exceeding targets, my chair of trustees introduced me at the charity's AGM as the prettiest member of the executive group. I regularly meet with other senior fundraisers and I am yet to meet one who does not have multiple stories of this type." We also heard from fundraisers being described as the CEO's date at fundraising events, being asked to wear a t-shirt emblazoned with Buggy Babe at a fundraising golf day, and being asked by a trustee, "Do you flutter your eyelashes to bring all the cash in?" These so-called microaggressions have major consequences, as another successful fundraiser explains. "They think my job is all about literally or figuratively seducing donors. This manifests both as disrespect of my role and as a potential invitation for harassment." As those quotes illustrate, women are significantly more likely to report receiving this kind of treatment from board members and also by donors, whereas male fundraisers are more likely to report being stereotyped by colleagues, as the bar chart on this screen shows. Being on the receiving end of sexist comments and attitudes affects people in different ways. When we asked how it affected their leadership aspirations, a third, 33% of women, said it's made them more determined to lead, to be in a position to change things. Unfortunately, 1 in 6 women felt discouraged from seeking a leadership position in an organisation or sector that treats women this way. This is the last heavy data slide. It shows a number of different things that women say they are seeking more so than men when they think about aiming for or applying for leadership positions. So women are more encouraged by charities that show a commitment to flexible working, support from a mentor, a role with trust and responsibility, training opportunities, visible role models of women in fundraising leadership positions, and seeing a diverse leadership team. Unsurprisingly, the lack of these factors are the main things that put women off applying for leadership roles. I'm going to end by sharing our recommendations for what can be done about all this. But first, let me give you a flavour of some of the conversations we had in the focus groups and interviews. Firstly, there was a strong sense that leadership roles that truly enable a work-life balance are very desirable, but pretty much non-existent, what one participant called unicorn jobs. She said, "I see myself staying here unless that amazing job comes up that's part-time, pays a load of money, and is really fulfilling. And I guess everyone would go for that. It just doesn't exist." So the outcome is overqualified women remaining in jobs that they could do standing on my head, as one said, because the higher rungs on the professional ladder don't fit with their personal commitments. The second key finding from the focus group is talking about what exactly is a good career. Does good mean you're doing good in the wider world, using your skills for a cause you're passionate about and maybe personally connected to? Or is a good career about pursuing the highest possible status and salary? There was felt to be a tension or a trade-off between personal values and career progression. People said, "The cause matters. I have to believe in the cause." One participant in the focus group said, "You have to choose whether you want to sit still and stay working in a wonderful environment with a job that you enjoy and don't reach the levels that you want to get to. And it's a choice, but it's sometimes a tough choice." Thirdly, and relatedly, women often encountered a lack of clarity about how much flexibility is actually on offer in a new position. They talked about jobs being advertised as flexible, which turned out to mean you could either start at 8:30 a.m. or 9 a.m, neither of which is much use if you're doing the school run. There's obviously a power dynamic in most recruitment situations, so the job seeker doesn't always feel able to ask and be totally upfront about their need for flexibility. Applying for jobs takes a lot of time and energy, so the absence of clarity is one more reason not to apply. Now, most charities say that they do offer flexibility, 97% of charities, according to an earlier Change Collective report. But it's hard to know whether that's genuine or window dressing. So women say that they stay in jobs that suit their current situation rather than taking a perceived risk by moving into or towards a leadership position that might not give them the flexibility they need, as this quote shows. When jobs are advertised, it needs to be really clear that there is flexi time, that we work in a trusting environment, that you will get your job done. Because when I'm talking about the caution of moving on to the next job, I need to know that in advance. I'm not going to go and throw myself into it and find myself in a horrendous situation. One of our case studies, which you can read in the report, shows that in an ideal scenario, flexibility is completely person-centred. So jobs are advertised as whatever flexibility you need to do the job and achieve the outcome. Finally, in the focus groups, we heard many more examples of female fundraisers experiencing everyday sexism and how it affects them at work. Sometimes this is related to the channel, with community fundraisers creating a particularly large amount of gendered expectation, community fundraising that is, that the fundraiser will make the tea, help with clearing up and washing up after an event. And whilst no one minded doing that, they couldn't help but notice that on the rare occasions a community fundraiser is male, he tends to be given a cup of tea rather than being expected to make it. The negative impact of everyday sexism is felt by charities as well as by individual fundraisers, as this quote shows. I set up a meeting with a key potential male donor, but was asked to not attend because the male trustee wanted to have a man-to-man chat. The prospect was surprised I wasn't at the meeting. The trustee did not make the expected ask of the prospect, and the opportunity for a significant gift was lost. That example is why we talk about charities missing out, as well as individual female fundraisers. The 4 case studies in the report are really worth reading, and I'll just tell you the topics that they covered. Please do read them. They're a good tonic after reading the problems highlighted in the rest of the study. They show that there are imaginative and achievable ways to put best practice into action. These four case studies cover creating a workplace culture of flexibility, job sharing, benefits to women and their organisations, how part-time positions can be part of mission-focused work, and how career support, like coaching and mentoring, enables women to achieve leadership positions. Let me finish now by sharing the recommendations that are published in the report. We split them into 3 sets. Firstly, we set out some next steps for the Institute of Fundraising. These focus on promoting and celebrating female role models across the sector, leading a mentorship initiative, providing career planning tools, proactively participating in policy discussions that relate to matters that disproportionately impact female staff and workplace commissions. And we also suggest that they commission further research to better understand how all protected characteristics interact to hold back talented fundraisers. Secondly, we have some recommendations aimed at fundraisers themselves. We suggest that they make a formal career plan, that they ask for clarity about what flexibility is on offer when they're applying for a new job, that they take advantages of opportunities to be mentored, to pursue professional development and engage in networking opportunities, that they also take up opportunities to serve as a mentor and to take advantage of training and support to effectively fulfil that role, and to serve as a trustee for another charity to help change the gender balance on charity boards and to challenge the bias and stereotyping that occurs in recruitment processes, governance and interactions with staff. The third set of recommendations is directed to charities. We suggest that they promote and recruit diverse candidates to boards and senior management because role models encourage persistence in female leadership ambition. We ask that they review recruitment practices to identify and root out potential for unconscious bias. We suggest educating trustees about stereotyping and having a zero harassment policy for trustees, donors and staff within the organisation. We ask them to investigate the gender pay gap within their charity and be transparent about the findings and share plans to take steps to close that gap with haste. To be clear and open-minded on flexible work conditions in job adverts, and to use available technology to enable maximum meaningful flexibility. I want to give the last word to two of the women who took part in the study because they so eloquently summarise where we are now. The first says, "There is much, much more work to be done. Qualified, talented women are being denied opportunities that would only seek to enrich, strengthen and develop the charity sector. We can champion change if we are brave enough to stand up and admit our faults, admit our biases and work hard to rectify them." The second quote points out that we need to find a way to lift and support women through every life stage with training, mentoring, coaching and internal promotions so that when the time comes to step into the senior roles, they are ready and confident. You might want to take a moment to pause and read both these quotes in full. Let me end by thanking you for listening and watching this video. Thank you again if you took part in the study, whether in the online survey, the focus groups or the interviews. Thank you so much. We can't do research without participants. Thank you to Dan Flusky and to the IOF for commissioning the research. And thanks very much to the steering group who are listed here on the screen. All of them provided excellent input and support as we went through the research process. Both Elizabeth and I hope you found this study useful and interesting, and we'd be delighted to hear any feedback that you might have. Thank you very much.